What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, back at it again with another video. Today we're going to get into an album review. Haven't done one of these in a while. We're getting into, of course, Nicki Minaj, Pink Friday 2. Yes, I did all the songs on the album individually. If you haven't seen those, go check those out. Now we're getting into the whole thing. Now, before I start this off, I just want to say that I re-listened to the album, okay, a few times, and I listened to it on Spotify, and there was a very big difference on the mixing and the production quality compared to YouTube. So that changes a lot of things that I've said on my YouTube reactions, because some of those songs, a handful of them, maybe like 7 to 10, almost half the album, there were comments that I made about the mix in particular and how I didn't feel like it was that good. There was level issues. There was a lack of clarity on things. So that all has been fixed. The album sounds fantastic on Spotify. So hope you're ready. We're going to jump into Are You Gone Already? First track on the album. Let's get it. So off the rip, the song opens up with something very soft and welcoming. A little bit of vulnerability. You have Nicki playing with her son in the background, so it sets this tone of like, okay, she's a mom now. She's living life and doing things behind the scenes, and it's more of a human kind of interaction, something that's a little bit more relatable and vulnerable, you know? So just off the first few seconds, you hear that. Then you have the Billie Eilish sample in here that really kind of sets this sad undertone, but also this contrast of beauty and darkness in there. So there's a little bit of a mix of feelings kind of going into it already. And it's almost like a beauty in the sadness. Now with the drums coming in, that opens up a lot of space for Nicki to rap and to tell a good story, which she does. So having the drums come in was a very good choice, because now it allows Nicki to paint a picture with her words. And we all know she's very good at that. And speaking of storytelling, this is a very deep song and it's very sad, but it's also a silver lining of hope because of the way she handled things. You know, it's about her father, losing her father, and how she handled all of that, the pain that she was going through. And she really kind of paints that time of struggle that she went through and how she overcame it, but also to tie in back to the beginning of the song, how she overcame, you know, having an abortion early on in her life. And then now it's at a different perspective because now she is a mother. So she has this current perspective to look back in hindsight on her younger self and having that abortion. So there's this nice dichotomy and beautiful relationship that's kind of coming all full circle in here. And I didn't understand that until I went through and read the lyrics and listened to the song again. And it really is a beautiful, twisted story in a sense, because it is sad, but there's a mature perspective and a happy outcome to all this, right? And the blessings that she was granted and the blessings that she received and what life is like now that she's been through all this pain, and her perspective on how she came out on top, essentially. The production on here is very good. I don't think it gets stale at any point. I think it matches the vibe perfectly and allows her to tell the story that she does tell. So I think the production on here is really good, and I don't really have anything to say about that, to critique that. So the chops, the sample chops that they use in here at different parts, add a little bit more life to it to make sure it's not too slow, to keep it balanced. So the production's good, the quality's great, the balance and the vibe of the song all match. There's a very good connection between the instrumentation that I'm hearing and the lyrics that I'm hearing. So there's a very good balance overall, and a nice harmony with everything on this song. Now, overall, it's a very beautiful song in terms of how it sounds and the balance of everything and the way that she wrote and the lyrics that she wrote, but it is very heavy. So because of how serious it is, I'm not going to be running back to this song. I'm not going to be playing this song over and over, but I can't deny the experience that I had listening to this, and for it to be the opener of the album, I think was a phenomenal choice. So with all that being said, this one I'm going to rate a solid 9 out of 10. So Barbie Dangerous, okay? Immediately at the start of this, I get met with a fatter synth, bass kind of synth, and a fast-paced piano melody. So I already know it's a 180 flip from what I just listened to on the intro. So I already know something is going to be more fast-paced, and we're gonna step up the energy a bit. The flow and the energy of the song starts out strong. The the flow of Nicki, the lyrics, the metaphors, the alliterations, the bars. Like, she comes off pretty strong in this one, especially coming from where she just came from, and she's got entendres in here. She's really rapping out the gate very good and getting me hyped up already. So it's only the second track and I'm already feeling like, okay, I'm rubbing my hands together, like, what she got for me, so I think that's a good vibe to have coming from where we just came from. I didn't know at the first time of listening to the song, doing the reaction, that the sample was from Biggie, Mr. Notorious B.I.G., Notorious Thugs. I didn't know that was a sample, but I knew I recognized it. And I was like, dude, I heard this. And when I read the comments, I'm like, okay, yeah. So now that I know that, I listened to that song again and then listened to Nicki's song, and I love the homage that she pays to Biggie in this song. There's a lot of play on that song that she did, like the flow that she mimics on the chorus matches Biggie's. She changed the lyrics. The first line I think is the same, but then the rest she changes her lyrics and she matches the flow and matches the vibe and the sample of that song. So I really like that. And there's even a couple of lines in there that she throws back to Notorious Thugs. So if you guys haven't done it, be sure to go listen to Notorious Thugs by Biggie and then Nicki, and then compare the two, because she does pay homage to it, which I thought was really dope. And that added another layer to the song that I didn't previously catch. And I think that took it up for me just a little bit. The mix and production on here are really good as well. And you're going to notice that's a theme with this review, is the mix. I keep talking about the mix because it is a very good mix compared to the YouTube reactions that I did. The track is balanced with good layers in the back. There's ad-libs in the back. I can hear everything very clearly. There's no issue there. And I also think that it's a good track to have right after the opener track to let you know two things. One, that this album is going to take you on a ride and we're about to step it up a little bit. And two, to immediately display versatility, right? Like, it is a 180 from the opener of the album to this. So right there in two songs, Nicki's already showing how versatile she can be. So for me, this one is definitely going to be a run it back song. I'm going to play this one back for sure. I enjoyed a lot of this song as a whole, everything from the flow to the mix to the homage to all the little details that I caught after and reading the lyrics. So this one for me is going to be a strong 9 out of 10. And just two songs into the album, we're already starting out pretty strong. So FTCU, yes, F that club up. Not for the cold umbrellas, as previously stated by me. I was just guessing on a whim, and looking back, dumb guess. I got to give it to y'all. But also, I didn't recognize that was a Waka Flocka sample. I knew it sounded familiar. I'm like, okay, and even I think he says Flocka in there, so I just didn't catch it. I was zoned in onto what I'm going to get from Nicki. But FTCU is another good follow-up to Barbie Dangerous, because, again, we're leveling up in energy and vibe, and now we're getting into more party kind of stuff. So Nicki has this great elevation on the album already, 3 songs in, that I think is really good, because it's not all over the place, and she continues for the next few songs. We'll get there. But I think that's a good way to start the album. A lot of albums, track listing is huge on what song you put in what order, and Nicki is doing a very good job so far. So it starts off with this aggressive kind of party vibe, and it has that nice sample chop in the back, and then the 808 comes in, and things are about to get a little bit nasty. Okay, they're about to start hitting kind of hard. Nicki comes in, she's got that smooth, soft, that suave, confident flow, just floating on the beat. So already she comes in and you're already bobbing your head. But when Nicki comes on now, she's just floating and just in the pocket. And it's leveling up more and more with the vibe. So I really enjoy that part. The mix in here is clean and crisp. This is the first song where it's starting to sound crisp. And when I say crisp, when a mix is crisp, you can really, really hear every little sound that is in the song. And it's very clear. There's no clashes of frequencies. Nothing is muddied. Nothing is blended in too much with another frequency, a different tone. It's very kind of cut and dry, but still balanced and blended in. It's high level audio engineering, and here it's crisp. Of course, the beat is a little more simple by nature. That leaves the audio engineer with a lot more room to work with, but nonetheless, it is crispy, and I do like it. And the second verse starts off with a unique and hypnotic flow. When she comes in on that second verse, the way that she comes in on the pocket, it's a almost an unorthodox way of coming in. It's so smooth and grabs your attention that you really kind of zone in. And I think she probably did that intentionally, because that bar she said with the vitamins ride to Dickie, That was a very good line, and I thought it was a double until I went back and read the lyrics, and it's actually a triple entendre, which was a smooth line, and I think the best bar of the whole song, because the way she says vitamins, she's playing on words, vitamins, and then vitamins, the brand. Vitamins is a brand, a fashion brand, and then Ride to Dickie is, obviously, we know what that is, but then also Dickie pants and Dickie clothing, so it's like vitamins, fashion, vitamins, D, vitamin D, D for schlong, and then Dickie brand, Dickie. Like there was a whole lot in there. It was triple entendre, and I think that was a bar and a half. So going back on it, that one was really, really good. I think that was the strongest bar of the album so far. Okay, so that was a very, very solid line. Now, the only critiques for this one that I have is just that it's a little repetitive with that sample that they chose to use, and especially for the chorus. That's it. Other than that, it's a solid song with good production and good mixing and great energy, to be honest. The party vibe is there for sure. But that's the only thing, is that it's just slightly repetitive. But still, overall, I'm going to have to give this an 8 out of 10. Solid track. Definitely will be playing it back, and definitely enjoyed it for sure. Okay, now we're getting into Beep Beep. Now, this song flows well off of FTCU. I think this was a good placement. So far, Nicki has had great placement on all the songs, and there's good flow structure from the first song to this song. It all makes sense in the sounds that I'm hearing and why she chose to do them at what part. The mix here is very clear and very crisp, and I love the ad-libs that are in the back. I think the ad-libs complement Nicki's flow and her confidence very well, and take her main rap verse just a level up because of those ad-libs and how well they work in the background to enhance Nicki's flow. I really like that detail, and listening back to it, especially on the Better Mix on Spotify, it was much better to hear it there, and really, I think, took it to another level for me. Now, there are two versions of this song. One with Nicki by herself, and it's kind of short, and then one with 50, and it's longer. So the one with Nicki, I think, is good. There's a few lines in here that are solid. There's a nice couple of bars that I enjoyed, but the rest is basic-ish. You know, it's not bad, but it's not stand outish to a lot of the other songs on here with the bars that she does pop off with, especially, you know, later in the album where she really starts getting in her writing bag. But for the one with Nicki, I think it is solid. It's just a little bit on the basic side, and I think the mix and the production are really good, but the outro's too long for how short the song is. I think they could have definitely cut that outro back. And like I said, the mix and the production and the vocal performance on here are good, but how short it is and the lack of replay value for me and the lack of impact compared to the songs that I just heard almost give it a mixtape kind of feel. I don't feel like it should have been on the album in the way that it was. I really think Nicki should have had 2 verses on there, and that would have made more sense compared to the songs that I heard before this. Now, the version with 50 Cent, for me, I'm going to be 100% honest, and like I said in my reaction video, 50 Cent is one of my favorite artists of all time, okay? Get Rich or Die Tryin' is still one of the GOAT albums ever. I mean, love it. But here, this did not fit. 50 on here did not fit. And it's not because 50 doesn't sound good with Nicki. It's because of his verse. I read a comment, and I don't know if this is true, but someone said that, and I don't want to believe this. This just doesn't make sense to me. But someone said 50 phoned in his verse. That's really not how that works, especially at a high level. People don't phone in verses. What they do is they might record something and send it off. You can email verses, but phoning in a verse, that doesn't make sense. Unless you're in jail, you know, that's happened. But 50's not in jail. So maybe he did send his verse off, and for some reason the quality just wasn't up to par. It was a bad take. It wasn't, maybe they didn't send it through a compressor or EQ or preamp, or like maybe it was a shitty mic. I don't know. I find that hard to believe. It's 50 Cent. But regardless, 50's verse on here did not sound good. The mix on it, even with Spotify, it was better, but something about it just lacked energy. It lacked effort. I feel like it lacked flavor. It didn't bring a whole lot to it. I think it actually brought the song down a little bit. It just felt forced, especially 50 Cent seemed like he was trying to sound like Pop Smoke a little bit. It wasn't 50's normal kind of rap voice. I don't know what he was doing there. I didn't vibe with it. I don't like it. It felt half-assed. It felt low effort. And I think that version of the song is worse. I would rate that version of the song a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10. I really did not vibe with it. But the song without 50 and just Nicki is in my opinion, I think a 7 out of 10. Solid, not amazing. I'm not going to be coming back to it. I might, but I'm not itching to play it back for sure. And I'm definitely not going to turn it off if it's on. A 7's not bad. A 7's just pretty decent, And I think if Nicki would have had a second verse on there, it could have gone to an 8, maybe a 9, depending on how hard she snapped. But for what it is, what we have, with 50, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. With Nicki by herself version, a 7 out of 10. Okay, Fallin' For You. Now, the production, the mix, and the writing here are all really good. The layers on the chorus are nice and pleasant. They add depth. They add more atmosphere. They give the listener a kind of surround sound feel to it. I really like that. They add a level of depth that help bring the listener in further. And I think the parts with the violin that they added were good because that helps complement Nicki in a sense of adding a little bit more softness to it, and kind of enhancing it and driving in that Fallin' For You lovey kind of vibe a little bit further, because violins are a very beautiful instrument. So I think that was a good choice to kind of help drive that vibe home a little. And to make sure the song isn't so slow, Nicki has good writing and bars in here in her verses to kind of help keep that energy up so the song isn't so slow. So I think she did a good job of doing that to help create some more balance and so the song doesn't get stale. And especially towards the end, I really love the harmonies. The harmonies that she was doing and the harmonies that were going on, those sounded really good. They also take you kind of to a little bit of a new height in the song and add something new so it's not stale again. And she's keeping that energy there and taking it somewhere new, and so there's no staleness at all in here. Now, with that being said, on the lyrics though, the song overall sounds really good, but the only issue I have is the lyrics, specifically on the chorus. I find it weird that there's a little bit of a conflicting nature with the lyrics and how the song is sounding and what it's intended to kind of be. I think there's a little bit of conflict there, and so for me that kind of brings it down a little bit and has me confused. So an example of that conflict would be how a lot of the lyrics are about shit talking, your opposition, how much better you are than them, and about how much you've accomplished and all these flexing lines, but then on the chorus make it seem like a love song. So for me, that's a massive disconnect for the vibe that I'm feeling, what the chorus is saying, and then what the verses are saying. The writing seems a little bit more messy here. Not enough to like shit on the song, but enough to make me kind of go, wait, what is happening a little bit? Because the writing is good on its own, but because you have this chorus that's kind of lovey-dovey, I'm falling for you, and then the bars are like, yo, fuck my ops, and I'm better than you, and I'm flexing. There's a little bit of this, hang on, is this the same song? So a little bit of confusion, a little bit of clash for me. And so for me, that brings it down a little bit. And I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Whereas I think if the lyrics would have been more on point, probably an 8. But as it is, overall, 7 out of 10. Okay, let me calm down. Now, this one, very solid song. A lot going on here. I'm excited to jump into this one. So let's break it down a little bit. Now, from the very start of the song, the first couple seconds, you already have these sample chops that are giving, if you're familiar with J. Cole, giving a J. Cole kind of vibe, a J. Cole cadence, a J. Cole sound. And this is really driven home when those drums drop. J. Cole, in a lot of his songs that he produces, uses more natural sounding drums, drum kits and kind of not your typical trap rap or your typical rap drums. J. Cole usually goes for like natural sounds, and when those drums drop, you're getting J. Cole even more. So out the gate, I already know J. Cole is going to slide on this song because it just has his sound on there. With the harmonies that Nicki brings in the back, it also takes you from J. Cole's all over this to hang on now, wait, this is Nicki's album. Now we have this Nicki sound on here, and we go, okay, now there's room for both of them to go in on it. There's this nice melody, cadence, and sound for both of them to do what they want to do on it. And I think it's very balanced to have these artists. I think when this was produced, they already had in mind that Nicki and Cole were going to make this song together because it just came out so good. Nicki starts her verse off smooth as butter. Very good, and quickly has a nice flow switch halfway through her verse to kind of shake things up a bit and keep it going and bring the energy and not be stale at all. So I really like the way she started and how quick she switched into a new flow to kind of just enhance the vibe even more. And then in addition to that, the ad-libs that are going on in the back also drive that further into, okay, there's more vibes, there's more going on, we got energy in here, this song is sounding more full and more of a top tier song already, more so than a few of the other songs that we've gotten on the album. So this one's a little bit more serious, especially with the lyrical content in here and what they're talking about. You can tell that the passion in here was high. Now the chorus on here is auto-tuned. It's not auto-tuned like out the ass. It's not crazy auto-tuned, but it is auto-tuned enough to where you can catch it instantly, especially when it breaks a little bit. And normally, I've got a love-hate with autotune. It either sounds really good or it can sound really bad and really give a cheap feel to the song. But here, you have a little bit of that fantasy vibe with those sample chops in the back and with those melodies that they have already created and the harmonies. So I think the autotune fits really good here, and also the way that they blended it and the reverb that they used, and they softened it up and kind of created this good blend with the autotune. So I think it works really well and helps kind of drive that space out fantasy feel that the sample chops and everything have already kind of created. So the autotune here actually works really well, and I enjoy it. Now, when J. Cole comes on, there's a huge energy shift, and that's for a few reasons. One, his flow is different. His cadence is different, obviously. Two, his voice is different, right? You go from female to male, so you have this huge contrast in tonality and frequency and notes and just the way it sounds. So there's this big shift in the song all of a sudden, and I really like that switch up because the energy switches again, So you've been vibing this whole song. J. Cole comes on, now you're vibing even more, and it just takes it to another level, I think. Now, the way J. Cole raps on here, obviously he slides on it, Nicki slide on it. They both do a very good job of floating in that pocket and that cadence. And his writing and message on here are on par with the subject. So a lot of times you'll have an artist slide on a beat on a song and the lyrics might be a little conflicting, so it takes it off. But Nicki and J. Cole both were on topic and on subject for this song. And that creates that story and that visual that you get in your head when you're listening to those lyrics. It all just ties in so well. And then something happens with his flow halfway through-ish. It's kind of unorthodox. It almost seems like it's offbeat, but yet he makes it work. So there's something unique about his flow that he brings here that I really appreciated because it's something new and it's that J. Cole kind of sound. Artists will bring their own sound a lot of times into features, and I think it's a really good thing to do if they have it down pat and they have it nailed, and J. Cole does, obviously. So I think that unorthodox flow that he brings is really good and adds more to the song and more energy, and the song is just a good ride so far all the way to this point. I really enjoyed it. When he does that, it really creates more dynamics and really gives it that extra sauce. And the way that he ends his verse, I think, kind of goes into set up Nicki for that last chorus. And I think that was beautifully done too, because again, you have this kind of crescendo and you have a new level that you're reaching. And when Nicki hits that last chorus, it's more full. There's more harmonies and layers in the back, and it really has this huge kind of finale feel to it on that last chorus before the song goes into its closure. So I think the structure of the song here is really good as well. So the storytelling in here by Nicki and Cole both are top tier, smooth as butter. The flows are both really good. The singing's good. The production's good. The mixing's good. Everything on here is really good. The structure, I can't find anything really to critique about it. So for me, this is definitely a hard run it back, listen, play it back. Definitely going to be coming back to this one. And overall, first 10 out of 10 on the album. So that leads us to get into R&B. Now, when I first started listening to this song, before I listened to it, I was like, R&B, it's got Wayne on here. It's got some dude I've never heard of. It was like a 50-50. R&B and Wayne don't really go together that well. Nicki and R&B, I see that. I've heard that. I know that. And then you have another guy I've never heard of. So I was a little nervous going into this track, but that nervousness would be squashed very quickly when Tate comes on and starts doing his thing. Because when he started coming on, I was hooked instantly. Like, I like this sound. So the song starts off a little spacey. It's got these soft kind of bells in the back. It creates this R&B kind of soft atmosphere, but that changes quickly when Tate comes on. When Tate comes on, he creates this energy and this flow and this sound to where I'm like, okay, this song actually might be a little bit more hype than I initially thought it was going to sound like, with a title called R&B and then these soft bells in the back. I was expecting more baby, what's up, girl, how you doing, soft romantic love, but Tate took it to like, okay, maybe I can party this song almost, So I really like the energy shift there, and it's a great introduction to Tate, to be honest. Tate absolutely slides on this song. I think he brings great energy and really smooth sound. So I think we can all agree that Tate just brings that sauce on this record. Now, when Nicki gets on here and raps, she's creating a good contrast to Tate's singing, right? Because Tate's singing is auto-tuned. It's got a strong tone to it. And Nicki comes in rapping. So immediately there's that 180 swap from singing to now rapping. And Nicki's coming in with bars. She's coming in with one-liners to make the song a little bit more fun and not so lovey-dovey. So she's adding a lot of sauce to this song and a lot of flavor to this song, whereas otherwise she could have made it a little bit more boring if she wanted to, made it softer and slower, but she didn't. So I like that because it plays off of Tate's vibe pretty well. And I think the way that Nicki ended her verse was really good too. I noticed that detail. She ends that verse with a few lines that are auto-tuned, and that does two things. One, it creates a new sound and a new switch in her verse, but also it helps the ear get accustomed to the transition that goes back into Tate's singing. So I think that was a really good call too, because it's just the transition is so smooth, and you're back into Tate in his singing, and the vibe doesn't stop for a second, so I think that was a really good call. Now, the mix here definitely brought up Wayne's verse for me. On YouTube, Wayne's verse was muddy. It wasn't blended that well. The mix on it was not a vibe. So for me, I just really didn't enjoy Wayne's verse. But listening back to it on Spotify, the mix difference is huge in quality. It made Wayne's verse a lot more tolerable to listen to. I still didn't really care for his autotune that much, but it did sound a lot better on Spotify. That helped tremendously for the listen. That raised it back up, to be honest. What he does do, though, is he comes in with creative lyrics, creative bars and flow. He has good flow switch and energy. So I think that definitely part of Wayne I enjoyed. It was just the autotune that I didn't really care for, and I still don't really care for it. But here on Spotify, the better mixed version, wherever that is, I'm sure it's everywhere except YouTube right now, that made it much more fun to listen to and not as bad. So with the better mix, I definitely vibed with it a lot more. So towards the very end, I think they did a good job with more layers and more harmonies on the last chorus with Tate, because again, you're taking it to another level. So this song has a really good crescendo kind of structure and brings you up to the last chorus, and it's the best chorus. It's the most full. You're coming off of Wayne's verse and his switches, and now you have this last full chorus right before it comes back down to an end. So I think that, again, is good song writing for structure purposes, and it brings the vibe and the energy to an all-time high of the song. So originally I was going to give this song like a 6 or a 7 because of Wayne's verse and how it was mixed, but now listening to it on Spotify, it definitely changes the listening experience. I vibe with it a lot more, and I want to play it back, so I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Pink Birthday. So this song starts off kind of similar to R&B, and I think is a good follow-up to R&B. From where we just came to where we're at, I think that makes sense in terms of flow and smoothness. So I think that was a really good continuation to follow up with. The sample chop and the drums here have a good energy and a good bounce to kind of have a little bit of that same kind of upbeat vibe that I got with R&B. Nicki's rapping here is smooth and a little provocative, if we're going to be honest here. Okay. She has great flow switches, good bars sprinkled throughout her verse, and flows with the beat pretty smoothly. Now, the first part of the chorus is pretty good. I actually like the first part of the chorus, but the second part feels a little empty and a little slow, comparatively speaking, to the first part of the chorus. I'm not really sure why she chose to do that. It didn't really flow well from the first part of the chorus to the second part because of that. And that's where it started to throw me off a bit. And the song also ends abruptly, which I thought was a weird choice because I felt like it was just starting to grow on me a little. It didn't really make sense to kind of end it that way. You know, it was a little bit of a shock, like, what, hello? You know, so I'm not really sure on the decision behind that. Overall, the production is really good with this one, and the beat, I think, is my favorite part. The actual instrumental has a nice vibe to it, but the rapping's good too. It's just the chorus that really throws me off, and it just kind of feels out of place. It definitely felt like she fell out of her zone a little bit, and originally I was gonna rate this, if she would have had a little bit of a better chorus and the song wouldn't have ended so abruptly, I think it probably would have been a 7, maybe an 8. But because it just fell short a little, and just there's not a replay value for me because it feels like it didn't become what it should have been, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. So, Needle, Mr. Drizzy Drake himself is on here. Now, it starts out soft with a little bit of a lovey kind of vibe. Drake singing on here already brings more melody and a little bit more of an addictive kind of feel to it with the way he's singing. Even though his voice is heavily auto-tuned, it fits the vibe very well. Again, with the way that the beat is and the bells, the xylophones, the soft muted pads in the back, it really does have that kind of spacey, soft vibe. So the auto-tune does fit here, and I think that was a good choice. And I mean, it really does have this huge addictive and groovy kind of atmosphere about it with Drake's melodic note choices and the way he sings and the combination of the beat. So it's already pretty vibey. Now, when Nicki comes on, she brings fire. She brings intent and delivery with her flow. And she has this huge confidence about her too. It's almost like that she's on the song with Drake and they have this long history together. She just, I don't know, felt more comfortable because that confidence is really coming out in her flow here. And the flow that she has on here just matches the beat and the cadence perfectly. I mean, she is absolutely floating on this song. And in the second chorus, when Nicki's done with her first verse and goes into the second chorus, the harmonies of Nicki in the background, I think were awesome. 1, take the chorus to a new level, but 2, add more Nicki into this song and really make it a little bit more full. So I really like that choice as well. I thought that was good. And I think the choice to have that bridge at the end before the last chorus was nice because it has a little bit of a break. Not that the song needs one, but to have a little bit of a breather and kind of bring the listener back to reality for a second and then go back into the chorus. I always like that push-pull dynamic when it's done correctly, and it is done correctly here. So I think that was a good choice to have that bridge before going into the last chorus, because with that push-pull, you're getting a new height when it goes into the last chorus because it kind of pulls you back to propel you a little bit on that last chorus, if that makes sense. So I like that. And I love the soft singing at the very end to kind of close the song out. I think that was also a good choice to kind of have a nice smooth outro for the song and not have it end abruptly or do anything weird. It made sense. So overall, the song actually has kind of a smooth, chill dance floor kind of vibe with that lovey-dovey relationship kind of topic and subject matter. So I think it's a great overall vibe. It's relatable and it makes you want to move a little bit, and it's got good energy. So for me, and the way that the production is, the mix, everything sounds really good. For me, this is definitely a run it back song. This is a play it back song. This one's going to be a 10 out of 10. Now we're jumping into Cowgirl. So this is actually a soft pop sex song. It's an interesting vibe here. The instrumental and the melodic guitar that's played here is in a softer and innocent kind of way. And I think that's driven home a little further when Lourdes comes on and she starts singing. You really have this soft, innocent kind of vibe going. But what throws me off is how explicit the lyrics are. It creates this weird relationship. And this is what I was talking about in another song previously, where the lyrics and the instrumental vibes are different and they kind of clash. They're almost separate vibes, you know? So the lyrics are just overtly explicit, with the vibe of the instrumental being a lot more soft and innocent. So it doesn't really have a good relationship. The production is pretty simple and bland, although the quality is really good. It's just not a whole lot going on. You know, it's very simplistic in nature. The mix also is really good, so there's nothing to critique there. I think the best part of the song for me was the bars and the flow of Nicki. I think the way that she approached it and the flow and delivery of it is probably my favorite part, but again, there's that clash. So for me overall, this song doesn't really have a good cohesiveness to it, and it feels a little out of place, especially when compared to the other songs in the album. And for that, I'm going to rank it a little bit lower. This one's going to get a 6 out of 10. Now we're getting into the track Everybody, okay? And I know this is one of the hits on the album, so let's jump right into it. Immediately, let's be honest, the sample and the energy right out the gate make you want to dance, make you want to move your body. Doesn't matter who you are. It just makes you want to move. The mix, the ad-libs, and the layers in the back here create a good atmosphere and a good vibe in addition to the instrumental. Now, Nicki and Uzi both match the vibe of the instrumental very well here. They both bring confidence and energy to really drive in the vibe of this song, and I think they did a really good job on that. Everything does sound good. If you don't pay attention to the lyrics as much, everything really does sound good and has that party vibe. Taking into consideration the lyrics, though, it is a little bit weird when several lines in this song are about killing people. That kind of also clashes against the vibe that I'm hearing with the song and the sample that's used. It's a little bit like, what are we doing here? The sample that they chose, the way they chose to use the sample in here, I thought was really creative. I really like the idea of how they wrote their lines and then had the sample in their lines for them. But the issue that I have with that is 2 issues. One, it gets repetitive pretty quickly because it's just everybody, body, bot. Like, it does get repetitive pretty quick. And the second part is there's a little bit of lack of creativity in the individual lines that they wrote leading up to the sample to end their lines. I think if Nicki would have had, and Uzi would have had their lines, the ending of their line that they wrote rhyme with the next line normally, but also the line would have gone into everybody, the sample, I think that would have been much better writing, and that would have taken it to the level that I felt like this song was going. But because I didn't get that, I got repetition, and I got lines that didn't hit as hard because of that. You know, it seemed like a bunch of individually separate lines that didn't flow as well because of that. I did like Uzi's second part of his verse. I think he rapped his lines and they did kind of rhyme, and that was better writing in terms of structure that I think should have been throughout the whole song, even with that creative idea they had to use the sample to rhyme with their lines. I think that they should have both happened. But I didn't get that there. And that, for me, being into music, being into writing, being into everything about it, I felt a little disappointed in the writing on this part, just a little bit. So with the vibe of this song, it's awesome. It really is a party song. The producers, the engineers, everybody that was a part of this song really popped off. I'm sure this song is going to be going crazy at concerts, parties, events, anywhere where there's people gathered and you want to get the energy up. This song is a must-have for sure. And if you ignore the lyrics, it's a highly rated song. Now, with the lyrics taken into consideration, which lyrics are half of music that you listen to, unless you're listening to just a cappella musical instrumentation like Periphery or something like that, that brings it down a little bit for me because there is kind of a clash. Not too much, though. I still would run this back, but I'm not itching to run it back as much as some of the other songs. So I'm going to give this one still a 7 out of 10. Big difference. So out the gate, I already know this one's going to be a little bit harder. It's going to be a little more aggressive, a little bit more of a club kind of sound with that reverse chop sample, whatever they have in there, that it just sounds darker, right? Like, I already know I'm going to get some aggressive Nicki here. And that is reinforced when Nicki comes in with the "Like My Honey Is Blue." And it's layered, and just the way she comes in is smooth. You're like, okay, it's one of those songs, and it's like, all right, I'm about to buckle up, right? So I like the way that started out. I think Nicki's flow and energy on here are smooth. It's laid back, but she brings confidence, so it definitely captivates you. There's a little bit of a hypnotic vibe here because it's almost like she's not even trying, but at the same time coming across as she's trying really hard in a good way. Like, she's putting in a lot of effort, but it's just so easy for her, so nonchalant. So the confidence is just radiating through here, really captivating, I think. The flow switches in here are good. The bars in here are good. I think the beat change actually was not only good, but necessary. When we first did Big Difference, back when she did a snippet of a few months ago, the song did cut out, and here you get the full song, and the beat switch is new. And I've seen some comments on this about how people didn't really care for the beat switch, and some people did, and then it grew on them, and blah, 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 blah. I actually really like the beat switch. I think it was not only good, but necessary because the song was getting a little repetitive by the beat itself. Not Nicki, but the beat was getting kind of like, okay, I'm hearing the same stuff over and over. It's like a 4-bar stanza. It's a little much. With that beat switch, you get something new, and I think that saved the song from the repetitiveness. So I think that was a really good call, and I enjoyed it. Not only that, but I think Nicki goes a little harder on the second verse. I think she snapped a little bit harder on the second verse, so we're getting another shift. As the song goes on longer, it's getting better, and that's typically what you want from music. Is the longer the song plays, the more you're vibing with it, the better it gets, the more addicted you feel to the song, because ultimately those are things that are going to lead you to play it back more and more. So I love the transition piece at the end of that to go back into the normal part of the song and how it originally sounded. I think the mix, the production, the lyrics, everything is pretty on point on this track and pretty solid. Nothing that's like outstandingly amazing, but very solid. So for me, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Red Ruby Da Sleeze. Now, if you've seen my original Red Ruby Da Sleeze when it came out like 9 months ago, 7 months ago, whenever she released this song, and you compare it to now, it's pretty different actually. I didn't go so hard on it when I first reacted to it, but I was like, I'm not really feeling it. It's kind of weird. It's kind of different. It's, some things I like, some things I don't. I probably would have rated it like a 7 back then, but it's gone up since then. I'll tell you why. Coming back to this song multiple times since I heard it, and then since the album's come out, I've heard this song several times. I love the sound you get immediately when it comes out the gate. It's very different, and it's very Caribbean, and it's very unique. And I think this is placed in the middle of the album for a reason. We're getting some of the most diverse sound on the album so far. So I think that her putting it in the middle of the album was a solid choice. The production and the mix on here are amazing. I think it's some of the best on the album, if not the best, in terms of the production and the mix. There's a lot going on, like a ton going on, but nothing is chaotic. Nothing feels out of place. It feels very balanced. Everything in here makes sense. And to have all that fullness and so many sounds happening without any clashing and anything messing another sound up, like to have that balance is really, really good. And a shout out to the engineers that were part of this, because that is, no easy task. So the song structure on here is very good as well. Nothing is boring at any point in time. It doesn't have a staleness to it. There's parts where it kind of does a push-pull and elevates and brings you down a little, and it lets off the gas, but nothing slows down to the point where you're like, I'm getting bored. It's nonstop the whole way. I love the singing on here. I like the Jamaican accent and the slang that she used on here. That really helps encapsulate that culture and that vibe even more so on the instrumental. So I think her bringing those vocals onto it like that was a really good choice and sounded really good. And if I'm going to be honest, the lyrics and the bars on this song are some of the hardest lines on the whole album. Full stop. I mean, she absolutely snaps on this. She's got snake disses in here. She's got metaphors. She's got bars. She's got entendres. She's got a lot of wordplay. She absolutely ate this one alive. And looking back on it, listening to it multiple times, reading the lyrics, dissecting it, I mean, this one was a sleeper, and it grew on me a lot. And, like I said in the beginning, if I would have rated this at like a 7 the first time I heard it, this song actually has grown into one of my favorites, and we're going to rank this one up at a 10. This one gets a 10. Forward from Trini. I know y'all were waiting on this one after I did my reaction, and I gave this a fair shot. I went back, I listened to it, I read the lyrics, I dissected it further. So we're going to go ahead and rate this one. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on it and why I think this way. So hopefully you can understand why I'm going to rate it the way I'm going to rate it. Out the gate, I will give it this. The mix on Spotify is tremendously better, than what I heard on YouTube. And that right there definitely raised it up a bit and didn't give it as cheap of a feel as I originally heard it on YouTube. So the mix definitely saved face a little bit here. So I could actually understand Skillabang a lot more clearer on this than on YouTube. Now, the production on here is creative and it does have good energy, but the sample chops, the extra sample chops, and the extra genre blending in here at certain parts were too random and too chaotic for me that they didn't really make sense, and they kind of clashed. I enjoyed Nicki's part and I enjoyed her flow a lot more than Skillabang. I enjoyed Nicki. I even enjoyed Skang's part after listening to it for a few times and dissecting a little bit, I've grown to like Skang's part a lot more than I originally did with the YouTube reaction. But what really, other than the beat clashing, what really takes this one down for me is Skillabang. Skillabang's part just does not blend with the song well. It's the low tone and the low energy of his vocal delivery, his performance doesn't blend in. It just is amateurish in comparison to Skang and Nicki. Skillabang just has this SoundCloud kind of feel to it because of his vocal tone and his approach and how he had like no flow switch ups. He didn't have any variance in it. It was very monotone the whole way through and very bland the whole way through. That brings it down. And especially when you're comparing it to Nicki and even Skang, it just feels off. He is the weak link of this song, I feel like. And I'm not saying that as an artist, because I still haven't checked out his music, and I'm going to check out him and I'm going to check out Skang, right? But for this song specifically, he's the weak link, you know. And even going into Skang's part, Skang brings much more energy and character to the song than Skillabang. He actually does a better job. He has flow switches. He has more energy. And even the part where him and Nicki go back and forth, that's probably my favorite part of the whole song. I actually like that part on its own. I could listen to that part back. When Nicki and Skang go back and forth, there's a vibe. And the island, you know, Nicki, like that part was a vibe. I could run that back. But because of Skillabang's part and the chaoticness of the beat, and especially the way the song ends, there's more chaos and randomness to it. It really just felt kind of messy, especially compared to the rest of the album. It feels out of place. And I know that the Caribbean vibe is there and that does fit with the last couple of songs in terms of placement. I think the placement here was good. It's just the randomness of it. The song doesn't have cohesiveness to it, and Skillabang's part really brings it down. So for that, this one's definitely a skip for me, and I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Pink Friday Girls. So I think this is a good sample choice here. This song almost has a little bit of like Va Va Voom, Nicki's pop era back then, kind of. There's a little bit of taste there to that, little dash of it, okay? Out the gate, it's got a good vibe and good rhythm because of that. So I'm already kind of liking it. I love the rapping and the singing switches. I think Nicki did a good job on balancing both sides of that coin, rapping how she raps in that lane, delivering how she delivered, and then bringing that to the singing as well. She definitely brought the effort in her A game on both. And going into Nicki's flow, there's a catchiness to it with the way she says certain things and her tone and how she says certain words. It definitely brings another level of catchiness to it, to where you like the way she says certain things, and it brings you a little deeper into the song. The production and the mix here again is top notch. It matches the rest of the song. I think the placement of it is a little, coming from the last song to this one, there might have needed to be a transitional piece in there. It's not the best placement, but it's also not the worst. So overall, though, it's not really my type of song, but it does check off a lot of the boxes that I look for in music. So even though I'm probably not going to be running it back, I still give it a 8 out of 10. Okay, here we have Super Freaky Girl. Really appropriate sample choice here. They did a good job on that old sample for this song. Obviously, Super Freak. Gotta love it. It fits perfectly. It's got good bounce and good rhythm. And surprisingly, it doesn't have too much melody, because a lot of the song's substance of sound comes from that sample, and the rest is kind of percussion and drums. So there's not a whole lot of melody, but Nicki brings melody with her voice. It's the way that she raps. She's not necessarily sing rapping or anything like that, but it's her tone and her character specifically. She brings a ton of character and life to the song with the way that she raps on this song. The lyrics on here, absolutely on point with the subject of the song. I think she killed it. She stuck on topic. She wrote very explicit lyrics and clever lyrics, and the writing was really good, and it matched the song, what the song is about. So I think she really painted a freaky picture and did a very good job with the writing. And the flow switch on the second verse, I think, was a good choice. That spiced things up a bit and added another layer to the song. I think on the second verse, she actually snapped pretty hard. There's some good lyrics in there in terms of technical writing. The cleverness of the bars and the details in the writing is actually really good. even though this song is, kind of this freaky girl song, I think that second verse actually goes hard enough for kind of like a lyrical breakdown, even though that's not what we're doing here like that. But I mean, there's a lot of details in that second verse. If you haven't paid attention, go back and check it out, because it's a pretty hard verse, which is random for the song that it is, but she went hard on it. Can't deny that. Again, the production, everything's good. Nothing to critique there. The mixing quality and all that, nothing to critique. So even though this isn't really my vibe of a song, and it's kind of, it's almost like a cartoony kind of song, it's not something that I would play back over and over. It's still a solid song, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, we're getting into Bahm Bahm. Now, this song starts off with a bit of a juke. You're not exactly sure how it's going to go, but that changes when Nicki comes in, and then when the drums come in after that, you know exactly where this is going, and it's more of that trap kind of feel. She got clever bars on here. She has good flow switches. I like the verses. And to be honest, when we're talking about the writing here in the verses, I think the rhyme schemes on this song are some of the best on the album, if not the best, in terms of just rhyme schemes. Not in bars, metaphors, none of that, but the rhyme schemes. What vowels she rhymes, what part of the line, and how they match up with the next lines are really good. And I really noticed it even more when I was reading through the lyrics. And I was like, damn, she has a really good rhyme scheme structure here throughout the whole song, really. So I think the rhyme schemes on here are by far my favorite part and the most impressive part. Now, even though the song sounds great, and I like the beat, and I like the production, and her rapping is really solid, something about it feels a little off. It feels a little empty, like there should be more. Maybe the song should be a little bit more full. There should have been a switch. There should have been a little bit of a growth to it, some change up, something. It just feels a little empty at times. I'm kind of left with that feeling after listening to the song. Now, the beat does have switches, but it's more melody switches, and they're very subtle. It's kind of like an octave switch and a slight maybe MIDI instrument change, but it's not enough to warrant like a good enough change for the song. It does feel kind of empty, and it lacks a level of that fullness that I'm looking for with a lot of the other songs on this album that deliver that fullness. This one doesn't quite get it there. Again, the production and the mix and the beat are on point, but overall, I think it just needs a little bit more sauce, and I could have rated it higher, but I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10 as well. Now we get into My Life. So Nicki starts off with good rapping and clever bars, as she does with majority of the tracks, and it makes me want to bob my head a little bit and kind of pay attention to what she's saying. The sample in here, though, it's dope. It's a dope sample, but it almost sounds out of place, and that's because of the way that it's sang. And I think it would be out of place if Nicki didn't start singing. But because Nicki starts singing, then that sample makes a lot more sense. And I think it was an okay call. I was worried when I first listened to it because it was a dope sample, but it sounded slightly like, I don't know if this is going to work. But because the singing, that makes it better. That fits better. And it does have more of a balance. It's solid production. It's solid writing, good mix. And overall, the song is pretty decent. It's pretty solid. I think the standout thing here for me is Nicki's performance. I think her performance on here stands out above everything else in the song. The writing, the beat, everything. I think the way that she approached the song really kind of helped keep it at a higher level than I would have normally rated it. But again, I'm not going to be playing this one back, and it doesn't really have me like some of the other songs, but it's still a solid record overall. It's just, there's a lot of strong records on here, and this one falls a little short of that. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10 as well. So Nicki Hendrix. Now, this one might shock you a little bit on the rating, and the reason is because Future's hit or miss for me, and Future I'm not like the biggest fan of. He does have some absolute bangers that I'll play back for sure, but he also has some really bad songs where the singing's just not it. There's a lot of clashing. But anyways, what we have here, though, is a little bit of a surprise. The vibe of this song is a little softer, a little bit more romantic, which is, when I think of Future, not what I think of. So out the gate, I'm already kind of like, wait a second, Future is going to be on this? And having him sing more calmly here, even though it's auto-tuned, it's still kind of his style, the way that he approaches and delivers his voice and his tone and his energy actually fit really well. And I kind of vibe with it. I like how the beat switches and drops. The beat drops and brings more energy to it. I think that was a good call to not make it stale, not make it slow. Even though it is a softer kind of calm song, I think that was good to make sure it wasn't stale in a bad way. And I like the way Future rapped. I think that was a good switch. I think he matches the beat very well. He does match the cadence pretty smoothly. And I think his tonal switches when he goes up to higher octaves, I think that was also a good call too for dynamics. It creates more dynamics in the song and gives it more life. So Future had a little bit more versatility here that I was not expecting. And then going into Nicki, I think having her sing more naturally was a very good call for a couple of reasons. One, it's a good contrast to follow up with Future, because Future's auto-tuned and heavily processed, and then to have Nicki sound more natural is a great contrast in the same song that gives it more depth to it, and I really like that. But also, because Nicki hasn't really been singing that naturally on this album so far, this is a nice reminder for anybody that thinks she needs auto-tune, et cetera, like, hey, here's her natural voice. Here's more natural sounding Nicki. She sounds good. Don't forget it. So I think this was a double whammy on her singing naturally and why I liked it so much. I love the layers and the melodies that Nicki brings as well. I think that's just more sauce added to the mix that give it more depth and more of a surround sound feel and add more Nicki into the song. I think the structure of the beat and the way the song flowed was very smooth and just creates a smooth listen overall. So I think that was good. Overall, it has a nice and relaxing vibe, and I think it's placed very well towards the end of the album to help kind of bring you down after all the songs of going up and everything that you just went through on this album. I think this is a good start to kind of help bring the listener into that closing kind of stage. You know, if you're going to listen to this album start to finish, I think this is a good place for it. I think the vibe of it is good and matches that. The only thing I could say here, I think, is I just wish it was a little bit shorter. I felt like it did drag on a little bit too long, maybe 30 seconds, because I think it's like a 4.5 minute song. And I think if it was a little bit shorter, I probably would have bumped it up one more point. But for how it is, solid song, definitely would play it back. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. That leads us to Blessings. So this one is different. This one is another serious song. Haven't had a serious song on the album for the last handful of songs, you know. So Nicki is ending the album the way she started it. She's getting back into more substance, more strong messages and things that are a little bit more serious and relatable and down to earth. So the production and the sample chops here and the sample chops in the back are a great combo because I'm getting a few vibes and feelings here. I'm getting a little bit of sadness, a little bit of beauty, a little bit of this uplifting energy and bounce all at once. And when you have a song like that kind of creates that vibe. The lyrics on it can be both deep and serious, but also with a light at the end of tunnel kind of theme. And I think that's what goes on here. There's strong lyrics and songwriting here that Nicki really kind of taps into with her relationship with God and how everything has panned out in her life. All the bad times that she's been through, all the good times that she's been through, she's tried to remain faithful, tried to remain grateful, and just really showcasing everything that she's been through and not giving up on God because God didn't give up on her. So I think it's a strong message there that she's sending everybody to try to have faith, whether it's whatever God you believe in or whatever you have faith, just to have faith and be grateful. So I think this is good songwriting and a good message to have. And you know, that trust that she puts into God. So I think that fits the sound perfectly. With this one though, I think Tasha really shines. She brings very strong vocals and rich vocals that you don't really have on the album the whole way through. With the exception of Nicki Hendrix, Nicki does have more of a natural sounding voice on there. There's not this strong, powerful vocalist on the whole album that lets loose. And Tasha, although I know she can go harder than this and really let loose and project, she does bring a level of power and richness in terms of vocal ability here that is a nice refresher for the album. And I think to have it on this song is even more of a good choice, you know, and with her bringing in these rich and powerful vocals, it does take the song up a little bit from that slower kind of state that it's in to heighten it just a little and, you know, keep it not stale. There's a little elevation here when she does that. Tasha also delivers strong lyrics and her relationship with God here too. I think Nicki definitely paints more of a hindsight storytelling kind of approach, but Tasha definitely touches on her relationship with God as well. And I think they both stick to the topic of blessings and what the song is about. Very good. I also like the layers that Tasha puts in the back. I thought that was a good call too. That adds more depth, that adds more surround sound feel and a better atmosphere. The production and the mix on here, again, are solid, but I do wish Nicki had a little bit more diversity on this one, because obviously we know she can do it. She's done it on pretty much all the songs. So on this one, I think if she would have just had a little bit more of a switch up, a little bit more sauce in here, I think it would have taken it up a point. But for what it is, and it does sound good. Not necessarily my type of song, but they were solid on here. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Last Time I Saw You. So we are getting towards the end of the album, and we're here. So this one has a good, catchy beat and melody right out the gate as soon as the song starts. The vibe is kind of like a softer pop vibe, and Nicki's vocals and her singing specifically match that really well. It's also her flow on here is very addictive, because the way that she flows bounces off of that melodic guitar that's being kind of plucked in the background and played in the background. Her voice and tone and flow match that really well. I mean, it is bouncing on it. So that right there is kind of pulling me in a little bit more, and I think that was a solid choice. When that synth bass comes in, when the beat switches and that synth bass comes in, Nicki's singing switches and comes in on top of that. Her transition into stronger vocals, I think that's a really good switch in the song to help the listener get pulled in even further. Also, the harmonies that are happening in the back really help bring the listener in even further with that big atmosphere that's created. So the switch, that whole transition piece, that whole structure from how it started, the beat switch, the transition switch with the singing and the harmonies and that growth really create a nice surrounding vibe and atmosphere to bring the listener in. So I enjoyed that part a lot. Then as we're getting kind of towards the end, I love that Jersey Club type beat, that boom, 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 right? That kind of pace, it almost feels out of place, but the way that they mixed it in and blended in and how soft it is, it's not as bumping as it would be in that type of song, but it's just enough to kind of get the energy up a little bit and build it up right before going into a last slow section. So it's kind of like a last hurrah in a sense of the song, and then it goes down into slowing the song and bringing it to a conclusion. So at first it might seem kind of out of place, but I personally like it because of the way they blended it in. If it would have been like a lot more apparent, a lot stronger, the kicks would have been harder, it would have been kind of weird, but I think it fit. It was a creative kind of gamble, but it worked. So overall, this song is very balanced. Again, the mix and production, solid on here. Can't deny that. It's very balanced in terms of melodies and energy, and I think everything just kind of flows pretty well. So for me, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Okay, we've made it. The last song on the album, Just the Memories. I think this song was done very well. It has a happy ending feel to it. You know, as soon as you listen to it and you're starting to realize it's the last song on the album, the vibe that you're feeling in your head is matched with the sound coming through this song. The essence of the song captures a final conclusion, if that makes sense. The vibe that it captures is a crossing the finish line kind of vibe. You know, think graduating college or high school. You know, you're on stage graduating. It's the end of the movie. The credits are playing. Think of that kind of vibe, and that's what's captured and put into this song in terms of the energy and the feel. The storytelling here also helps drive that feeling in too, because of what she's talking about and what she's been through on how it started and where she is now. You know, she was a scared kid in the hood and faced a lot of struggle, but ended up as one of the biggest artists on the planet and is now a mother with a family and is happy and grateful for all the people that she's worked with and met along the way. Like, it's a really good story of kind of anybody can do it if you work hard. You know, it's kind of got that inspiring and motivational feel with that story that she wrote here. Great production, great mix. I love the harmonies towards the end and the ad-libs in the back, the yeah. Those ad-libs repeating, it has a nice catchiness to it, and it makes you want to play it back, and you really start to vibe at this part of the song. I mean, you're already vibing, but towards this part of the song, those extra ad-libs just I mean, it really creates this connection, I think, to the song. And I mean, it's the perfect closing song. And even though I'm probably not going to be playing it back that much because of what it is and the weight of the song, and it's a happy ending, you know, it's kind of sad, but it's happy at the same time. For what the song represents and the placement of it as a closing for the album, I think was perfect from start to finish, how everything was, how it was written, the end of it. I mean, it really feels like a closing song. So even though I'm not going to be running back to play it back, I think for what it is, it's a 10 out of 10. So that concludes the album review. And if we add up all the ratings of each song and we give it an average, we get a 7.8. But I didn't do any points in any of the songs because I felt like that would have made it too complicated. So I just did straight numbers. So we're going to round up 8 out of 10. I give this album a solid 8 out of 10. Now, let me break it down for you for a little so you understand my rating. For me, anything that's a 7 and above, I could go back to, right? An 8 and above, I'm probably going back to. 9 and a 10, I'm definitely going back to. But a 7, I could go back to it. Depends on the mood. A 6, maybe go back to. Probably not, but maybe. You know, if it's on, I'm not going to turn it off, I don't think. Maybe, but probably not. A 5 and below, I'm just not coming back to it, right? So an 8 is a strong score. I mean, a 10 out of 10 is a perfect. Every song is perfect. And I don't think there's any album like that except for maybe NF Hope. I'd have to do that album review, and that one might get a 10. But most albums, solid, strong albums, are going to be between 7 to 9. You know, that's a good album because you have to take into consideration every song and all the details, the writing, the production, the engineering, the sound of it, how did it come out, the lyrics, everything, to really give it a good score. So for me, an 8 out of 10 is a great album score. I think this is a great album. I think there's a lot of songs on here that are worth playing back. I think a lot of songs are going to be played back by a lot of people. I think there's really not that many skips on this album, which is impressive because, one, it's 2023 going on 2024. There's a ton of skips on a lot of people's albums out there. 2, there's 22 songs on here. So to not have, for me, I think there's only 3 or 4 skips on the album for me. That's pretty good for 22 songs. So I think this is a very solid project. I think it's very successful, and I think Nicki's going to have a lot of success with all the songs on here. And it's just a solid record. It's a very solid record. Very impressed, very happy with how it came out, and I will be playing a lot of this back, and I'm excited to see what Nicki has for us in the future. So that'll do it for today's album review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment down below. It helps the channel grow. It helps the YouTube algorithm. If you're new here and you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button. I drop a video every day. If you're not new here, welcome back. Appreciate the love and support. You don't know what to do. Let me know. What do you guys rate it? What do you rate each song? Maybe you want to do 1 through 22. Just give me your rating. Just give me an overall album rating. Do you agree? Do you disagree with anything that I said in here? Let me know. I love talking to you guys as long as it's respectful. I ignore the trolls. But if you guys want to have conversations about music, I love talking about music. So that comment section is for y'all. If you're a fan of Nicki Minaj, be sure to go to support Nicki Minaj. Support her. Listen to her new album. Stream all of the songs that you like. Be sure to support the artist. Always support the artist that you like, the band that you like, the entertainer, the YouTuber, whoever is making content or music for you. Support that person. So with all that being said, hope you're having a great day. Sending positive vibes your way. And until next time, I'm out.